Hi there, it's Sandra. Have I got some cuties for you? I'm going to start out by making the tiered tray. I've got two terracotta saucers in different sizes. I've got a thrifted little glass that it's hard for you to see, but you'll see it shortly. And I'm going to take some white DIY chalk paint and water it down a little bit. I want to give these a whitewashed look. I'm going to give the bottom of this saucer one coat, not too thick, just with my brush once right all the way around. I'm going to be leaving some of the bottom open because that's where I will be adding the little glass for the tiered tray portion, and I like those to be on natural products and not on top of paint. Sometimes I just don't have luck gluing on top of paint. The paint dries really quickly, so I'm going to just mist down this little rag and I'm going to rub off some of the paint, mostly in the edges, that kind of thing, but I do want a little bit of that terracotta to show through in a few spots. So I'm just going to continue doing that until I achieve the look I like. Here you can see I didn't add enough paint, so I'm just adding a little bit more to make it look sort of even all the way around. Both of the pieces have dried, and you can see that the large saucer also has a raw spot. That will be for where I need to glue the glass onto that part. I'm taking my stencil brush from the Dollar Tree and some clay chalk paint from Martha Stewart Vintage Chalk Paints, and I'm just dragging a little bit of color all the way around the saucer. Using the same rag, I'm just going to go over this paint. I want it to blend in. Terracotta pots don't have a distressed brush stroke kind of look. They are more blended, and this way it just will make it look more natural. For the additional pieces, I'm using 3 of the napkin rings from the Dollar Tree and this thrifted glass, and I'm going to be spray painting them with flat white paint. To attach everything together, I'm using my Starbond medium consistency glue. I love these glues. It comes with an accelerator, which makes everything dry lickety-split. This glue is a medium consistency, so it's a little bit thicker than their original thin set glue. And this gives you a little bit more working time, which is really great. Now, what I should have done is put a pencil line around where my glass is going to sit, but I'm just kind of eyeballing it, putting a good amount of glue on. Then you take the accelerator and you spray the other part of your project and then put the two together. I like to give it an extra spray with the accelerator if any of the glue is on the outside, and that hardens it within about 5 seconds. And you can see here that I'm able to lift this up, nothing moves. I'm just checking it to make sure that it's nice and sturdy. My first farmhouse mini project is a little book stack. I've got 2 of these wooden blocks. They were a thrift store find. I'm just going to glue them together. I would have rather had 3, but 3 was too tall and it just looked weird. So I'm just using the 2. I'm going to give them one coat of my DIY chalk paint in white. I'm going to be covering part of this little book stack with this beautiful yellow and white gingham napkin with these beautiful bees on it. Now, this was sent to me from a subscriber, Denise in Arizona. Thank you so much for your little bag of goodies. I'm finally getting to use them. I'm going to apply the napkin with some Mod Podge, and I'm starting with the end of the book, and I've got my ceiling fan going, so that little napkin's having a grand old time flying around on my table. And then what I'm going to do is add another little bee that I'm just going to cut out from a little extra piece and add that right into the center. I love black and white with yellow, so I've got a little piece of this gingham black and white ribbon, and I did already cut it down and put it all the way around the book. I also added a little piece of twine. Now I'm just going to be gluing on a tiny little bow and add a little bit of greenery and some florals. Last thing I do to my little stacks is take my craft knife and just gently cut the tissue paper or the napkin, whatever you're using, all the way through in the center so you know it's a book stack. Just make sure that your Mod Podge is really dry before you do this. When I'm at the thrift store, I'm always on the lookout for these little bitty items that can be used for a tiered tray. This was a green marble little jug, and I had previously painted it. Didn't like how it turned out, so it sat around for a little bit. But now it's time for a makeover. I'm just going to give it a couple of coats of white chalk paint first. I went to my Cricut and I just cut out the word cream. I'm going to add that to the little jug. Now, when I usually do this, most of the time the paint peels off with the transfer tape, but I got smart. What I did was put the transfer tape down on my paper a couple of times. This is actually vellum paper, so it's a little more of the plasticky side. And I took away some of the sticky on my transfer tape, and that did the trick. I didn't lose any paint off of my jug. This next project is super cute. I've got this little ceramic bird that came off of a wind chime. I get them at my Dollarama store. So there's just two little birdies and then a whole bunch of pipes and things. I'm going to give it a couple of coats of white chalk paint. Next, I'm going to take a large bead and this wooden dowel that I believe is 3/8 of an inch, and I'm just going to push the bead down onto the dowel. I want to make sure that I have enough space for the dowel to go up inside of the bird, but I need the bead there to hold the dowel in place and so the bird isn't wonky. So what I'm going to do is just keep measuring, and then I'm going to cut the dowel down for how long I need it. I'm using one of these little wooden blocks that I picked up at the thrift store in a bag, and I'm going to now drill a hole into the center of it. I'll need to use my 3/8 of an inch spade drill bit, which will give me a really nice hole to fit the dowel. I've hot glued the dowel into the small block, although it's a really snug fit, so I really didn't need the hot glue. And now I'm just giving it one coat of black chalk paint. I'm going to go up the dowel and do the bead as well. Using some hot glue again, I'm going to put some on the very top of the dowel and then on the top of the bead, and I'll place the dowel inside the cavity of the bird. Again, the bead will just hold it from going too far, but it's going to put it really beautifully together, and now I've got a sweet little bird on a little pedestal. Using an old brush that has a bunch of dried paint on it, I'm going to be able to do some dry brushing on the bottom, the dowel, and the bead. I needed to do something to distress the bird, so I decided to take my clear wax from Folk Art Home Decor, and I'm going to add just a little bit of the Martha Stewart Vintage Chalk Paint in clay. I'm going to apply a generous amount to the bird, and because this is more liquidy than chalk paint, it's going to sit in all of the cracks and crevices, so those areas will become a little bit darker and the other areas will stay a little bit whiter. I love how this looks. I didn't take any wipe and wipe anything away. I just left it exactly how it was after I painted it. And I think this little bird is absolutely adorable. I found these little black and white espresso cups at my Dollarama store last year and I grabbed a couple of them and I tend to just make them over for every season. So for this season, I'm just adding my words sweet tea that I used with my Cricut and I'm just going to add a little bit more embellishment with a tiny little cardstock lemon slice. I have these little papers that came from my dollar store. I'm going to use this tiny little Dollar Tree scissors to cut it out and a glue stick to apply it to my little cup. I think this one turned out super cute. I've got a bunch of these red wooden beads that I picked up at a thrift store last year, and I'm going to use some gray primer spray paint to paint them gray first so the red color doesn't bleed through. I've put the beads on a bamboo skewer to make it easier to paint. I'm doing one of them black and one of them white. While the beads dry, I decided to make some tags. These are just little pieces of paint stir sticks left over. I'm just going to make the rounded edges the same on both sides, and then I'm going to paint one of them black and one of them white. I'm going to add a couple of words to each of the tags. The black one is going to say summer and the white one is going to say sweet. I'm using a white chalk marker from the dollar store for the white part, and the black one is one of my Craft Smart oil-based paint pens. As you can see here, I wrote Sweet Summer and I added some dots on the tags as well. Now I'm taking some of this white cotton rope that I grabbed at Dollarama and I'm taking it apart. It has 3 strands. I'm making a tassel. So I'm going to just wrap the yarn around my hand a few times, and I've got a couple different pieces, so I'm just going to incorporate those all together. I'm going to tie off the top of the loop, then I'll add another piece of string and make the neck of the tassel, and then I'll just cut them all the way through and fringe them out. Using some hot glue, I'm going to glue the tags together on an angle because I want them to be one piece. I'm using a piece of thin twine that has a tape on the edge to feed through the beads. When I get to the bottom, I'm also going to incorporate the black and white string that also has tape on it all the way through the bead. And that's going to just make sure that the tassel is very secure and won't ever fall off. I painted 4 of the beads with that Martha Stewart clay chalk paint, and every 5 black and white beads, I'm going to add one of these clay colored beads just to give it a little bit more interest. Now I'm finished putting on all my beads and I'm just putting a little dab of hot glue inside the last bead so the twine will stay securely in place. Then I'm also going to knot the twine 2 or 3 times to make sure it doesn't have the ability to slip through the beads. Now I'm going to take the end of the twine and hot glue it right onto the back of the tags. I'm doing it about an inch worth because I don't want anything to fall apart. I know this isn't the real way to do it. I should have probably drilled a couple of holes in those little wooden tags and tied it off, but I got a little lazy. But anyhow, not everybody has a drill. Hot glue works just as well. The last project today is using this Dollar Tree Buffalo check bandana. I'm just cutting out a square and I'm going all the way around with the black portion so all of the edges are the same. I'm going to use this little paper espresso cup, but I'm going to cut it down about halfway because it's too tall. This is going to hold my florals inside the bandana. To give this little arrangement some weight, I'm using just an old river rock and hot gluing it down to the bottom of the little cup. Then I'm going to take a little piece of foam, which is just a pool noodle, and I'm going to glue that inside as well. I'm going to use some of these little picks from the Dollar Tree. They're the lavender ones. And the greenery is part of a bush that I picked up for half price at Michael's. I'm just going to stick all of them into the floral foam, laying the bandana with the right side on the bottom. I'm going to put the little arrangement right on top of it and then bunch it together above the little cup. Take a little piece of twine and then tie it off really nice and tight so it stays together really well. I'm just going to add a little shoestring bow and this project is done. I think it's the cutest one yet. I really hope you enjoyed my tiered tray DIY and these 6 adorable farmhouse cuties. If you did, I'd love for you to give me a thumbs up. That tells YouTube that you like my channel and they promote me more. If you're new to my channel, I would love for you to stick around and hit that subscribe button. That black arrow will show you exactly where to click. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of your support. Take care and have a wonderful day.